There's our guy right there. So for
some reason I got booted.
nice. First off, we do have to give you props. You told us before Christmas. Don't worry, Jameer Thurman was going nowhere, and then he signs for 2 years. So what else do you know that you're not telling us, Charleston Hughes?
Man, I know a lot, man. You just got to ask the right questions. If you want to know, just ask the right questions. I told you specifically that Jameer Thurman wasn't going anywhere, so I knew
I know.
it's too much of a relationship, too much of him moving around and not getting with a program that really knows him and loves the way he plays.
Does he, since you know him on a personal level, does he legitimately like being part of Rider Nation and what's going on here under Corey Mace and Jeremy O'Day?
He does, man. I mean, Jameer Thurman is a excellent ball player, man. I'm surprised about the way he bounced around the league, the way he did. I thought he was going to be in Calgary, his entire career just because of the type of guy he is. He's a good leader. He's a really good football player on and off the field. And he's just an all-around nice guy. He don't really talk much. He's super quiet. But when it's time to play behind those pads, that's when he makes all his noise.
Speaking of someone who I thought may spend his whole career as a Calgary Stampeder up until last week, was Mike Rose. The news came down last week that the Stamps had released James Waters and Mike Rose. And I had said, both good football players. I wouldn't mind if we pick them up. And then a few days later, Mike Rose signs with the Riders. Now, you played with him. Give us the inside scoop.
I played with both of them, actually.
I know. So who is who is Mike Rose? What kind of football player, what kind of person are we getting here in Rider Nation?
Well, the one thing I can say about Mike Rose is he learned from the best. He played with me. He played with Micah. He played with a bunch of guys who were legitimate ball players, and he got to sit back and watch and just learn how to play the game. And the thing is he took a back seat to a lot of excellent players until it was his opportunity to actually get on the field and play. Maybe I would say 3 or 4 years in before he actually became a starter. And then that's when his game kind of took off because he got to see and he got to, get molded into the player that he is today and really watch, and see what it takes to actually make plays on the field, how to get to the quarterback, how to play the game the right way. So it didn't surprise me that he had success when you get kind of groomed into a position to be successful. I mean, that's a big mistake on Calgary for even thinking about letting him go, but I think he's more happier than they are.
Well, it's one thing if they would have released either Rose or Waters, but the fact that they released both, and maybe they think there's something in the pipeline, but you just can't replace all of that CFL experience with guys coming up that don't have any CFL action under their belt. Like, they may have great potential, but it's a whole different game. Like you said, if he had to apprentice for 3 to 4 years, what's a first-year player going to do on a D-line in a brand new league, in a game they've never played?
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is how I look at it. Calgary is in desperation mode. They showed desperation mode by the coaching staff of getting rid of, a couple great coaches that they had. They're in desperation mode with the players that they have on that team. So really, they're trying to start fresh and start new and, roll the dice on opportunity to be successful this year. So hopefully they're gambling and they're gambling on black and red. And right now they're gambling on red and they're hoping that works out for them. I hope it does. And I hope that, springboards that team to greatness. But like I said, you're taking a 50-50 shot right now, really bigger than 50-50, more like 60-40, 75-25.
Well, it was funny I think it was on Sunday, Vernon Adams Jr. tweeted out when there was a lot of activity going on with a bunch of these signings to be like, hey, kind of like, what are we doing? And I kind of chuckled to be like, hey, big play VA. If you don't know, Calgary has never done a lot in free agency, and I don't expect them to start now. No. Like, they signed Dominic Rhymes, who I've always liked as a receiver. He's a big possession guy. Done in Ottawa, so that, but like you played in Calgary a long time. Free agency was never really a thing because you had a good pipeline. But do they
Free
even have a
agency
good
was never
pipeline
a thing.
anymore? We don't know.
No, man, they don't. That's what I'm saying. Like they're really, really rolling the dice on this year again. And you can't even say they're putting all their marbles in one basket. I feel like Edmonton is doing an excellent job of building a team, putting a lot of veteran players on the field, pretty much taking all Toronto players from last year, but putting together a good team. Um, so Calgary's definitely in trouble when it comes to playing Edmonton this year in the Classic, the Alberta Classic.
Well, and here's the thing, and the news out of Riderville yesterday, they signed the Stamps number 3 short yardage quarterback Tommy Stevens. They'd signed Jake Mayer. So if we're taking from there, the two most active teams have been the Edmonton Eskimos and the Hamilton Ticats, two teams that did not make the playoffs last year. Do you like the aggressiveness that Ed Hervey has approached this with, trying to, in short amount of time, retool that Eskimo or the Elk roster, pardon me, to turn him into a contender? On paper, it looks like he's done a good job.
You know what it takes? Ed Hervey, man, he's a veteran GM in this league. He's been in this league a long time. He knows what it takes to win. You know, combining that aggressiveness with Mark Killam, and I know Mark Killam is a real competitor. He's an aggressive coach. He likes ball players. So, that's what he's going to go after. He's going to go after the guys who he knows can play football. And that's really the chemistry and the makeup of winning a game, really, when you're going after ball players. Now, when it comes to Hamilton, I don't know too much about what's going on in Hamilton. I mean, all I know is Bo Levi over there, so he yapping all on Instagram. So I ain't really worried about that too much. But for Saskatchewan, they've made quite a bit of moves, this year, especially with picking up Tavon Campbell. I've seen that recently, and that's a good pickup. He's a good veteran DB. He's hometown favorite. I intend on him making some good plays this year, especially from coming from the NFL and having the success that he had there. He's definitely going to come to Saskatchewan and make a real good impact real quick.
The Riders have made some signings, maybe not necessarily the flashy ones that some of the other teams have made, but they're just adding, slowly going. The one thing about the Ticats, Ted Govia is the new general manager, and he was going to come in there and try and rework that team. Now, with Kenny Lawler signing, and that's probably one of the big ones, like if Geno Lewis ended up signing at Ottawa and Kenny Lawler was the other premier receiver out there, if it's 2nd and 7, I'm thinking Bo Levi Mitchell is probably going to not hand the ball off if he has a chance to put it up to a Kenny Lawler. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that. And the other thing, too, is, listen, who knows if we were in on Lawler at all? But the one thing, Charleston, is he's out of the West Division. And if there's a team that has kind of, outside of Calgary, if there's a team that has kind of been picked over a little bit in free agency, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are also losing some of their stars, because when guys play well, they want to move on. They want to get paid. And, you don't win. You got to move on. Do you see it like that Winnipeg is losing some of that pipeline of talent they've acquired?
Yeah, you're going to see a decline for Winnipeg this year too, man. I mean, although they're probably one of the oldest teams in this league, I would probably think they got a lot of older players on their team, a lot of aged, seasoned players. So with that being said, they're doing a good job of retaining, all their veteran players. But when it comes to the younger guys wanting to get paid, wanting to come in, make an impact, you can intend on seeing a decline in the play and how successful they've been over the last, I would say, 7 years. They've been.
Is Charleston back?
Well, how did I
there he
get
is.
kicked out? What is going on? What's wrong?
I don't know. You're in the great state of Texas. Listen, I am going to put a tariff. Cole or Curtis, could you put a tariff on Charleston's cell phone?
Maybe that's what the issue is right now. This tariffs put on internet service from Michigan all the way, no, from Texas all the way to Canada. We getting charged right now.
Oh, the other day on the show, Barney put a veto on. We couldn't do any tariff talk, but then there was tariff news that broke, so we had to break our tariff veto. So we're
Man,
back. Yeah, so
that's terrible though, man. All that tariff talk, that's going to have an impact on the CFL.
well, and the other thing too is our dollar. It's the lowest it's been since 2003. So if you are an American Charleston Hughes and you're coming up here, and let's say you're not on a big dollar contract, and you're getting 63 cents on the dollar, and you still got a life back home and bills to pay, it may make players, because you guys must have to think about that. If I stay and work a normal job in the States or go to Canada and play football, but if I'm 60 cents on the dollar, are you further ahead?
Yeah, man, that's like I said, man, that's going to have an extreme. I think the last time I seen it that low was like 2008, 2009. No, 2008. And
Yeah.
I was evaluating whether I should go back home or not. I think I stayed in Canada the entire off season just because I was like, man, I can't afford to go home. I was like, if I go home, my pay's cut in half pretty much. So, that does have an extreme, it has an impact on me right now because my retirement is there.
What?
Yeah,
Smokes.
my retirement money is in Canadian funds. So I'm losing my retirement. Yeah.
Holy, somebody called Charleston's agent and financial planner and let's see if we can get that transferred.
It's too late now. I got to ride the wave now.
Yeah, you're in it like the rest of us, my fellow Canadian friend. So salary cap goes up for this year. It's going to be just over 6 million, 6.06 million, an extra 400 grand. Now, how do you spread that around? Does everybody get just a little bit more? Do you make a splash and give that to one or two players? Starting pay is not great.
If I'm a GM, I'm trying to sit on that 400,000 for the entire year. I ain't trying to pay nobody. I'm telling all my players I ran out of cash. I used all the money up. There's no money left to go out. Then you just try to work with what you had on the same cap that you had last year. That 400,000 isn't enough to kind of go around to everybody else. Isn't enough to really give a lot of people raises. I mean, it's really only 400 grand, right? So it's not really enough money to satisfy, the demand for what players want right now. So you got to try to make as many people happy as you can with the same salary cap that you operated with in the year before.
Maybe some teams will do this if they're have guys that are going to be in NFL camps, and if they do come back, that there is money to sign, and if that's the cookie jar, and then you go that way.
Well, that's why the teams like Calgary Stampeders, they don't make splashes in the free agency because they don't spend money. They don't break the bank on players really. They just try to maintain and try to just stray in and slip into the playoffs and try to make a run for the playoffs.
Well, somebody pointed out real quick when Ed Hervey was going crazy on Ed Hervey Day on Sunday that back in 2019, he signed a whole bunch of players when he was general manager of the BC Lions, and they didn't make the playoffs that year. They missed the playoffs. So winning free agency sometimes doesn't translate onto the field. I think this time around, with some of the players that they're getting, that Niles Morgan, and I don't know how you feel about him, Charleston. That Niles Morgan, he's a baller, man. That is a good linebacker. That is a good CFL linebacker.
Yeah, man. He has a motor, man. And he's one of those guys that can run sideline to sideline. He can play in the box. He got good speed, good change of direction. He's a short tackler. Man, I watched him play a lot last year, and I was definitely impressed by, what I saw.
Now, he's a re-sign. Tyrell Ford, who's coming over from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And we'll get your take on this. Put on your general manager hat. Would you ever pay a DB? Now, he's Canadian, so he's got the right passport. Would you ever pay a defensive back in the CFL? It's rumored he's getting $230,000 a season.
Negative.
Now, what about, here, let's rephrase this question. What about a suave defensive lineman with a bit of a swim move, little surf move at the end? Is that worth $230,000 a year? Uh-oh. He's not going to be able to answer that question. No. Is he back?
If you got a suave defensive end, then heck yeah, that's worth $230,000.
That's exactly the answer that we were looking for.
That was Micah Johnson calling me right now.
Oh, okay. So here's the thing, because he's a free agent at the moment, right? So he's on the Riders free agent, and you don't have to give away any family secrets because I know you guys are tight. If you had to put a prediction out there, do you think Micah Johnson comes back to Rider Nation this upcoming year if he's going to be playing football?
Let me think. How should I answer this? Pick your next words wisely, considering that he called me right now.
Now, maybe he's listening on the radio saying, hey, put in a good word for me here. I'm in a bit of a negotiation with my agent.
Put in a good word for my boy, Micah. I see you out there.
Nice.
No, the thing is Micah had one of his best years last year.
I know.
And the thing was, he outplayed everybody on the Riders defensive line. He was the best guy up front. And the thing is like, why wouldn't you pay a guy like that? He's a veteran. You know, I can see him coaching in the CFL, you know, when he's all said and done. He's just one of those guys that you got to have in your locker room, because I know how he attacks the game. I know how he approaches every game. He approaches every game with the utmost, you know, professionalism. And he's a weight room junkie. You want guys like that push players. You want guys like that who don't have egos, who don't, you know, who are willing to coach up younger kids who came in behind me really and played next to me and saw what it takes to be great and knows what it takes to be that, you know, Hall of Fame type defensive lineman. I mean, why wouldn't you want a guy like that in your locker room? You tell me.
I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that as a yes, and we're going to take that to the bank, and we're going to cash that in for Canadian pesos, not American dollars or whatever. That's the gospel according to Charleston Hughes. Real quick, we're going to end on this. Super Bowl on Sunday. Who are you taking? Philadelphia Eagles or the Kansas City Chiefs?
EAGLES.
He's on the Jalen Hurts hype train. I think him and Jalen Hurts may go to the same barber.
What? You don't like the Eagles?
Listen, they have a better roster, and by far, and everything says that they should win. But betting against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid doesn't seem to ever really pay off in those big moments, right? If the game is close, you have to favor the Chiefs. Now, if the Eagles can get out to a 3-score lead, which may never happen, could be all day long, but
so what you're saying right now is we got a friendly wager coming.
Friendly wager. Let's bet one of your pension checks on what are we doing here?
You can as a case. That sounds like a case of Molson.
A case of Molson. Okay, when you say a case, are we talking a traditional 12-pack? Are we talking a 15, an 18, a 2-4? We'll use Colson and Curtis's money.
A traditional 12.
Now, are you like a straight up old school, just straight Molson Canadian guy? Or are you like, because there's a lot of offshoots under the Molson umbrella. There's a lot of different beers under there. Are you just a straight Molson?
I'm just Canadian. I don't even think you can get that beer down here in Texas.
Okay. All right. I'm in. I'll go Chiefs. You take the Eagles for a case of Molson Canadian. But if there happens to be, a tariff thing and you end up with a case of Molson Dry, don't blame me. Blame the federal governments. Okay, man. I got nothing to do with that.
It's fair. Oh. That's even trade.
All right.